I guess I can use either one of these. Is this?
Yeah.
This will be fine. Well, I'm always impressed with all that Rotary continues to do. I have been a member for 2 years of Rotary 8, and it's good to be back with you all and at Sunrise and just be reintroduced to the wonderful community work you do. So very much appreciate that. And so I wanted to talk a little today about Catholic Community Services. As mentioned, I've been with CCS for, oh gosh, 30 years now. And in Tacoma, you stick around anywhere for that long, you know, you get to know folks. So a number of you I recognize, don't know particularly well, but certainly see some familiar faces. And that's just the way it is. I'm amazed at how, especially as the kids grow up, you run into folks and all those relationships really do make a difference, so it's great. Catholic Community Services is kind of a well-kept secret in the sense that CCS of Western Washington is the largest private nonprofit human services organization in the state. The church came into Washington State about 150 years ago, and then that's not quite in focus, is it? I wonder if I can. It doesn't look like I have that control. At any rate, this is the footprint for Catholic Community Services of Western Washington, and we began providing some measure of human services in about 1918. And this is the footprint of the Archdiocese of Seattle, just to give you some organizational reference. So it goes from the Canadian border, of course, down to the Oregon border in Western Washington and all of these counties. This is a service map that shows you the various services we have in these locations, and you can see that we have presence of some kind pretty much in every county in Western Washington. So we are dispersed over a large area and have been providing services for a good long time. Because of our mission at CCS, which is broad and diverse, and it comes out of the social teachings of the Catholic Church, really looks to be present to people at all phases of life. So from birth to death and at every point and every population in between. And because of that, that gets us involved in lots of different things. This is really just some selected statistics, but you can see across Western Washington we have about 3,100 employees, about 700 in Pierce County. Volunteers there, a combined operating budget, Catholic Community Services and Catholic Housing Services. Catholic Housing Services is our affordable housing arm. Most of our shelters and transitional housing, though, are within Catholic Community Services, kind of continuum how the permanent housing is within Catholic Housing Services. And then this gives you some selected service statistics. Shelters, all total clients served, a little under 100,000. Number of shelters throughout many communities. In the Southwest region here, where I'm the director, in my tenure as director, about the last 15 years, we developed shelters in Kitsap, Bremerton, as well as Olympia, and in now Tacoma and Pierce County. So permanent housing units across the system, about 2,200. We have about 350 permanent housing units in Pierce County. And that includes some specialized to seniors, to people experiencing mental illness and so on, and a lot of housing for formerly homeless people, families and individuals moving out of homelessness. A very large area, probably our largest system, is our long-term care system and services to seniors and disabled in their homes. We provide about 1.75 million hours of service every year. We're doing increasingly a good deal with homeless veterans. This is throughout a 3-county area, which is administered out of Pierce County, and over a couple of years served 273 homeless veterans through a grant that we have to focus on veteran homelessness. And of course, that's very relevant to our area with the bases here. We continue to do a lot in that arena. And then some foster care services, some mental health services identified there. And we do a lot Meals on Wheels kind of thing, and provide a lot of meals in what you would refer to in hot meal programs or soup kitchens kind of thing. So you can see a good number of meals are provided. And we couldn't do any of this without significant volunteer assistance. In our volunteer program, or in our program serving homeless families and children, Phoenix Housing Network here in Pierce County, we have over 2,000 volunteers in that program alone. I'm just guessing, I'm going to take a shot at that. Phoenix Housing Network, we work with about 25 interfaith communities as well as other institutions that house 5 homeless families up to a week per year. Some do it longer. Or how many of you are familiar with that maybe host that in your church or congregation or what have you? Yeah, a number of you. So yeah, that's been going on now for about almost 20 years that we've been doing that in some form. So a good bit going on, and again, I did some selected statistics here that made it so you could still see it. I didn't want to fill the page up too much. So to talk a little bit about trends, you know, we've heard a lot this last week or two, the 50-year anniversary of the war on poverty. Of course, that goes right to the heart of what I think our work has been. And as is the case with many challenging, difficult issues, it tends to get characterized in dichotomies, you know, extremes. Either on the one hand, and I'll exaggerate here, every problem related to poverty just has to do with the, you know, folks making bad choices and needing to pull up by the bootstraps, and it's all about we need to focus on helping people get married and stay in 2-parent families. And of course, and on the other hand, every problem related to poverty is a federal government funding problem, and that's where the solution lies. So we know that obviously either of those isn't the solution. It's obviously some combination of things all along that continuum, and all those things are relevant. But I would say that we need to stay in this challenge. We know that we see greater and greater income disparity, and that's certainly related to this. It's a very complex set of issues and problems, but I would just invite you, without going further into that issue, that's not what this conversation is about, is just to stay reasonably and thoughtfully in that conversation in our community, to explore ways we can be more effective at certainly not widening that gap and trying to narrow that gap in various ways through training programs, certainly through businesses and hiring and all of the kind of economic development that relates to that, but also supporting our public endeavors, the things that we do communally. They all relate to creating communities that support folks who are struggling at the economic margins. So we have been in that struggle for many years, and today I wanted to focus a bit more fully on our more recent endeavor, which is to develop I think a project that is trying to do something really different in the arena of homelessness and bring together, for adults in this case, and bring together 3 pieces of our organization that we have acquired, and they were various standalone organizations over the last 15 years, brought them together to try and do something that helps more homeless men and women move out of homelessness. And that's what I wanted to talk at some length. What we see as a major trend, and I don't think it's really changed, it's just that it is clearer all the time, and that is that people's stability or instability, a common core thread to that typically is housing stability. So if they don't have housing stability, I don't care what the issue is, it's going to be very difficult to address. And so housing is a consistent theme in to helping people improve in their lives, whether they be individuals or families. And so my work at the organization as a director has been focused a good bit on housing, in the continuum of housing, from shelter, transitional, and permanent housing, and supportive services related to that. So this project, the new Nativity House, is something that came together. This is showing a drawing of what we were looking to do on Yakima Avenue. This is at 13th and Yakima. This is a little bit out of, there we go. That's what I wanted to put up. So what it brings together are 3 programs that were formerly not part of Catholic Community Services. So another thing we try to do is not recreate or invent things if they already exist and just maybe are struggling or need additional support, to provide that support, improve and increase the sustainability and bring them together. So the Hospitality Kitchen was a separate organization. That became part of CCS a few years ago. Second, then Tacoma Avenue Shelter, which is the former King Center shelter. Martin Luther King Ecumenical Center had that shelter on Tacoma Avenue. That became part of CCS about 4 years ago. And then lastly, the Nativity House, about 3 years ago, became part of Catholic Community Services. These are all services that support homeless men and women. And what we wanted to do is say, how can we change the dynamic on this a bit? What's going on? Well, we've seen overall homelessness, we've seen the numbers in Pierce County actually reduce. Some of that's related to a change in the way that we count the numbers. But one of the things we've done recently, in recent years, is try to focus on the chronic homeless. These are the folks that have been homeless for longer than a year or have multiple episodes of homelessness over a period of years. And they tend to have the greatest impact on our systems and services and resources. So police, fire, hospitals, emergency response, mental health services, and so on. And the thought is, of course, makes sense, focus on those individuals you can really impact both their lives in terms of stabilizing them and helping their lives be much improved, as well as the costly impact on the various support systems. So these are the frequent flyers. And the jail system, significantly impacted. We have a lot of folks released out of the jail that come right to the shelter. So they've done their time, they have nowhere to live, they're in the shelter. So this is the focus of these 50 units of housing on Yakima is to try and serve some of those chronically homeless with a well-structured program with a lot of support services and staffing to do that, and to help stabilize their lives and reduce the impact, the negative impacts on the community. Again, with homelessness, it's very strong belief that, you know, we have choices there. They're going to be in our community. We can choose to ignore it. We can choose to hope it goes away. We can think that someone else will do something about it, or we can, you know, but if we don't have an intentional approach, they're going to be in our business doorways. They're going to be in our parks. They're going to be on our streets wandering. We have an element of that still, even though I think we, all in all, have a pretty good system among ourselves, the rescue mission, and other providers, where we complement and provide a place for people to go all the time. That's what we tried to create a few years ago with city officials and others, to say, let's have a place where folks can go, so that we don't have to just keep pushing them around from one neighborhood to another. Mostly we've achieved that. Rarely is it absolute in any community, but that's certainly what we're trying to be about there. So we set out, this is a project that then we'll be focused on our property there. We have a number of sites around Pierce County, of course, but our main office is the former St. Leo High School, where Tacoma Actors Guild was for a number of years. Some of you might remember that. So we renovated that in '94. We've been in there. And the lot next door, which had the old Allen AME church on it, that and an adjacent lot we've combined to a larger property. If you've been down Yakima in the last couple of weeks, you've seen some significant changes there. But we've now started to do the groundwork. That's where we're going to build this facility. I showed it there, some elevations. That's from this front on Yakima on the side. And this gives you a little bit of timeline. These projects take a good long time to develop. And those of you that appreciate real estate development, and it's more complex when you're dealing with, you know, the 5-6 funding sources, public, private, and the whole combination of things we typically bring together to do one of these projects. So we hope to, we began in earnest here the end of last month. and it'll take about 12 months to complete. That's the elevation from the back. The idea here now is that we'll have, this is the back from the parking lot. If any of you have been down into the back parking lot at St. Leo's there, this is looking then up the hill from, say, G Street, or the parking lot above G Street. And you'll see that this will be the day entrance. So Nativity House, which is, and Hospitality Kitchen, which are really day shelter operations covering 7 days a week, 365 days a year, including all weekends and holidays. That's what this entrance will be in the main floor. And then behind it, on the ground floor, up against Yakima all the way in, will be a shelter for men and women. That's the largest shelter in Tacoma. We'll have about 175 beds, roughly 50 for women, the rest for the men. And a combination of, we've been able, it's wonderful. We've been in the old, on Tacoma Avenue there, what is it, East, E-Court, behind there. And if any of you have been in that facility, very tired. You know, it's a converted, jerry-rigged space that was kind of a basement, sub-basement almost. The ceilings are about this high. It just doesn't, the airflow in there, you know, you get 140 people in a space like that. It's not healthy. It's not at all amenable to the kinds of space we want to create for folks to be healthy. So this is a much better arrangement. Very exciting to see that come together. And then up above, this is the housing from the back. The housing will be on Yakima Avenue. So this is bringing Nativity House, Hospitality Kitchen, the shelter on the main floor, and adding the 50 units of housing. That's another artist's rendition of it from Yakima Corner, kind of looking from our Tacoma Center, the old St. Leo High School, from that space. This is a graphic that shows what we are hoping to achieve, or what our vision is for change as this. This is the current services on your left. The kitchen, Nativity House, Tacoma Avenue, day and night shelter, what we provide. These are the added or enhanced services as we move into the new space and develop that. Some of these things we've already begun. We have now a small team of mental health providers on our staff. We never had any of this. We were essentially caretaking day to day. Still need to do all of that because it's all about relationship building. But then when folks are able and ready to change and move forward, we have increasingly a number of services and support we can provide them. In addition to the housing, move people into, we have rapid rehousing strategies that help move people out into independent housing. We've seen some great success with that recently. We have some foundation funding that's helped us do that. And now we're getting, that sort of led the way, and now we have the county helping to fund that. We're doing more with employment services, more with our chemical dependency services. We do a lot with transportation and advocacy and helping people connect with getting ID. Some of the most essential things that we take for granted, these folks need a lot of help with. So the blue shows you all the things that we're either going to be able to provide additionally or improve upon. And then the green is the benefits to the individual, community, and donor. It's a more efficient way. We have 3 sites currently. We're going to now, and that's not an efficient way to run it either with staffing or facility-wise. It's very costly and efficient. Bringing that all together at one site will provide us with some significant operating efficiencies. And for the community, we're able then to, I think, we're better able to wrap services and support around some of the most high-risk, high-impact individuals in the community and make great improvements there. This is taken out of actually so we have a donor section on the bottom. We have a campaign that's part of this, as you can imagine, and we're very fortunate to have both Jim and Bruce on our campaign steering committee, and that's been going now for about 6 or 8 months. We've been making great progress. It's a $5 million campaign. It's part of an overall project that's about $16 million. So that's what this entire project financially is about. very exciting. That's a focus in on some of the things I talked about already. Let me see if I have some things to hit on there. We're increasingly doing work with veterans, and you know, the scourge of veteran homelessness, I think people have served our country as they have and then come back and for whatever reason find themselves to be homeless. It's something we need to do something about. And at the federal level, there's been great leadership on this with the VA Secretary Shinseki. He's really had it as a focus. Those of you that are connected to the military are probably aware of that. But we've seen that with focus, with resources coming down to help us do that, and we've seen some great changes with veterans in our community and doing some housing. This project isn't focusing exclusively on veteran housing, but we shelter roughly 15 to 20% in our shelter are veterans, and we expect to see that kind of percentage in the housing program as well. In Thurston County, we're in the early stages of developing an entire project that's going to focus on veterans. That's real exciting in the next couple of years. So this gives you now, the architects can do this great stuff with aerial 3D imaging. It's the TAN building next to our Tacoma Center. St. Leo's Parish will be just behind that. So this is kind of from 15th and Yakima, aerial view of the new building. Another shot of it here from the back side. So you see some of the characteristics of the design. And one of the things we wanted to do, there will be times of, you know, congregating that happens because of the numbers of people that move to and from this site on a daily basis. Right now, they're traipsing, I would use that word, between schlepping, you might say, because they have no other way to move around, you know, between the shelter on Tacoma Avenue up to 13th and Yakima, down to 23rd and Jefferson. Obviously, others will avail themselves services at the rescue mission, and then back up the way, and they'll walk and move around quite a bit during the day. Exercise is not a bad thing, but no, most of us can't imagine doing that all year long and all the conditions that we encounter every day. We get in our cars, you know, we avoid it. We don't go out. They have to if they're going to get the basic daily needs met. And so this allows a lot of that to happen here on one site, but we wanted to mitigate the impact of that in the neighborhood by having the natural flow to and from really begin and end in our parking lot, as you'll see this design. And that this end of the neighborhood is fenced off so they can't go this way. It will be dispersal then will be multi-directional from that. And a lot of thought was put into, you know, the way in which we can do this in a way that is compatible with our neighborhood and community and minimize the impact of that kind of numbers moving to and from our area. And of course, we come and go to work every day in the building right next door. So there's a certain amount of built-in accountability about that. You know, I have to deal with our employees too, right? They want a safe, reasonably a positive environment, and so it's very much a built-in incentive that we pay attention to the things that make our workspace functional. And this is the last, just a little piece there. Thank you so much. This is a comment from a Nativity House guest. Being there with respect and dignity, we are human beings, and society sometimes forgets that. Sometimes we do too. So restoring that human dignity, dignifying, doing what we can to dignify every life, every day, we see as our fundamental task. And through that, a lot of great change can happen. We try to be present to that. We're just stewards of it. It's gone on for many decades before we came on the scene, and we're just trying to continue to do that in a responsible, open way. So I'll leave it there, and maybe there's a little time. I think there is about 5 minutes for questions, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. Any questions that you might have? Yes?
Mental health issues.
Right.
A lot of your clients eventually have them. How do you deal with them? How do you recognize them?
Well, they're not hard to recognize, but it's very significant. You know, and all of you at some level are aware of the changes we've seen in the way we've approached that since the 70s and 80s. And what it's resulted in with deinstitutionalization is that a lot of folks are on the streets with severe mental health issues. And so it's a significant challenge. Every day, you could walk into the hospitality kitchen or nativity house, and if you're there in any consistency, there's regular customers with severe mental health issues. We mostly, it's a treatment milieu, you might say. We try to, for years, we try to do the best to just be present to folks, create some consistency and caring. You know, a lot of these folks, they don't encounter anybody that actually knows them by name, you know, so rarely. And so just providing some level of normalcy in their lives is an important factor. But what we've done, and I alluded to this a little bit, we now have a small team of mental health specialists, and the model that's proven to be the most effective is to train and support peer support specialists. These are people who have come out of an experience of homelessness and/or mental illness, and now are stable enough to give back. And this is really a model that's kind of sweeping the country, and it's proven to be very effective. Because then with that training and support and being part of a team, folks connect with them. And it's all about relationship. You and I go in there and try to talk to someone who's had the life they've had and get us to, and them to listen to us. It's very, very challenging. I mean, to take a long, long time before they have a trust level. Someone that's a peer support can do that immediately because they can tell their own story and it's real and it relates to them, and they can say, look, I've done it. So these are the kinds of things that we're doing, and increasingly we have now with Optum, the RSN contractor, a small contract to do that. What's been a wonderful thing is the new City of Tacoma 1/10 of 1% initiative that just now has launched new mental health and chemical dependency resources into the community. So a number of us dealing with that are able now to strengthen or actually develop any kind of service with this population to help them with mental health and chemical dependency issues. So there's some exciting things happening in that arena, and finally some acknowledgement that we have to focus there. You know, those systems, we're not going to be institutionalizing folks. At least if that moves, it's going to be slight. You know, we're not going to see a significant change in that policy. We really have to deal with them in our communities as effectively as we can, and support families that have them. And you know, we've seen a lot of that in the last year in the local press, the challenges around that. But does that help? Great.